The way I break down my toolbox, the 3 books I found most helpful, this is what I found helpful. Hey friends, what's up? It's Evelyn and welcome to another video. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Evelyn, nice to meet you, and I'm currently a product manager working in tech. I've made a couple videos here and there about my PM experience, and also of course just some fun videos here and there about my daily life. But for today's video, I wanted to focus on a PM topic. So how did I interview prep? Interview prepping for product management roles are very different from the way I initially had prepped for software engineering roles. So for software engineering roles, I did a lot of lead coding, and a lot of the stuff that a lot of the tools that I used in helping me figure out what exactly to code up was things that I were taught in school, and I just didn't have that same background with product management. So the way I'd break down my toolbox are into 3 parts. The first part is my past experiences, the second part being frameworks, and then the third part being others' past experiences. And for the latter 2, I got a majority of these frameworks and an understanding of others' past experiences through books. So let me tell you the 3 books I found most helpful in my PM interview prep process. Granted, these aren't the only books about product management out there, but these are the books that I managed to find, I read, and I found incredibly helpful when I was going through the interview process. The first is Decode and Conquer. Actually, such a super quick and easy read. So Decode and Conquer by Louis Lynn, it walks you through a lot of the frameworks that Louis Lynn had come up with, but also a lot of example questions that you might run into in these interviews. Second book is Lean Product Playbook. And I'll actually touch upon these specific chapters that I found helpful in a little bit, but Lean Product Playbook by Dan Olson, incredibly helpful playbook. This book I think was meant more for entrepreneurs, but I thought there was a lot in this book that was helpful in structuring the way you go about thinking about answering these PM interview questions, and of course later down the line, once you are a PM, things that would also help you in the role itself. And the last book that I found incredibly helpful is Cracking the PM Interview by Gail Lackman McDowell. So I actually had the Cracking the Code interview book from the same author, and I got the PM interview book as well. So this Cracking the PM interview book, it's this gigantic book. It's like twice the size, and by gigantic I literally mean size-wise. It's a gigantic book. It's twice the size of a normal book. But what I found super helpful in it is there was a lot of room in it to jot down notes and things like that. They also had a lot of numbers in there that would help with those, like, oh my gosh, what is that saying? Something about an envelope. The ones that help you quickly be able to estimate numbers and things like that, which is incredibly helpful because sometimes in these interviews, they ask you these sort of, oh my gosh, what is it called? There's a name for it because consulting interviews do them too. So something else. I'm looking this up. Market sizing. Market sizing. That's what it's called. Wow, I can't believe I forgot the name of that, but it has been years, or a year, I guess. My memory's really bad. There's a lot of numbers that help in that book with market sizing, and it's kind of just like a handy guide for you to either take a picture of just to quickly look at before heading in an interview, or trying to memorize, I guess, before heading into your interview. All right, so out of those 3 books, this is what I found helpful framework-wise. So for the books, what I really got out of it was frameworks to help me, and then also what I kind of noted down as others' past experiences, which is really just examples to look through. Let's talk frameworks. And I'm not gonna deep dive into exactly what these frameworks are because maybe for another video. There are also tons of YouTube videos out there of these specific people who came up with the frameworks, them explaining it, and I'm sure they'll do a much better job than I do. So I'm just here to list out the frameworks that I myself found helpful. First one being circles. If you have at all Googled into how to PM interview prep, you know about circles. Louis C. Lynn's circles method. I also love the, I don't know if they actually say R or the AARRR acronym from Dave McClure. Look that up, super helpful. Lean product process. So this is actually from the Lean Product Playbook by Dan Olson, but the lean product process itself is something that I would definitely keep in mind. Product prioritization, this is also by Dan Olson. The double diamond method, this is created by Design Council, I believe. The RICE method, which is by Intercom. And then the last thing I have listed on here is just an overall understanding of metrics and a framework on how to do so, which I couldn't even begin to list out all the things that were referred to in Lean Product Playbook, but for those of you who are interested, chapters 13 and 14 of Lean Product Playbook, I thought this was incredibly helpful in helping me understand how to work with metrics, how to understand metrics, just a solid introductory understanding of metrics as a whole from the PM perspective. All right, so that's all the frameworks that I found were helpful. And these are what I would say are really your tools. You know, for coding, you have recursion. For PM, you have the circles method. They're just things to help you be able to better structure your answers to the questions, and also, you know, the way you go about thinking about answering these questions. And the last thing I have here listed for my toolbox, of course, is the others' past experiences. To me, this was a wide variety of things. It was others' past experiences in the PMs I spoke to. So I actually met a lot with the full-time PMs that I knew of. And of course, you can feel free to reach out on LinkedIn and things like that as well. Asking people about their past experiences, whether that be in recruiting tips or their actual day-to-days, if they can help explain to you their way of thinking through challenges and questions and things like that. Super helpful. Another thing is in these books, I think, yeah, all three of these books had examples of either how to answer PM interview questions or walked you through a real life example that would be similar to a PM interview question. And I think what I did a lot of at the end of the day was just listening on YouTube to people talk about how they would go about answering interview questions. I don't remember the specific channels off the top of my head, but if you just look up mock PM interview, there are tons and tons of videos out there on real current full-time PMs answering mock interview questions. And this is great to just listen to. And of course, at the end of the day, you're not going to get better unless you practice working that part of your brain that is formulating those PM interview answers. So as much as you can memorize all these frameworks, memorize all those numbers for market sizing, listen to everyone go through their mock interviews and things like that, what's more helpful above all this is exercising your own ability to answer these PM interview questions. And what I did is you can either jot it down, so you can look up PM interview questions and just start writing it out, write out your answer. You can talk to yourself in a mirror. I don't think I actually ended up doing that. I did a lot of jotting questions down, and I would kind of write out how I would go about answering them. But feel free to also reach out to your full-time or other PM people on LinkedIn and things like that. More often than not, people are very willing to just do mock interviews with you. I found those incredibly helpful because you truly don't know what it feels like to answer a brand new question off the whim until you're doing it in front of someone else, and you can learn a lot in that process. So my number one piece of advice is just to practice. Similar to how software engineers practice coding interviews by doing leak code and things like that, you need to do the same thing. It's just harder to get. There's no right answer, right? So with leak code, you can figure out if your code is running well. But for PM interview prep, you really want to just run that by someone else, and having someone else ask you additional questions, kind of poke and prod your solution, things like that. That's what will really help. All right, so I think that's everything for today. Those are my pieces of advice on how to find jobs to apply for, how to organize your recruiting season, and my most helpful books and frameworks to look into. But above all, practice, practice, practice. I don't even want to say practice makes perfect, because I don't think there is a perfect solution at the end of the day. I think there's just a better solution, and it just really helps to exercise that PM muscle and that way of thinking. So yeah, that's all for me today. Feel free to leave any additional questions you may have down in the comments below. I really hope this helps some of you guys out there who are currently or thinking about recruiting for product management. And yeah, feel free to leave more questions, and I'll catch you in the next video. Thanks for watching. All right, hey guys, Editing Evelyn here. So something that I wanted to add here, the tips I provided about interview prep in this specific video is really geared more towards just general interview prep. So when I actually went in to interview at specific companies, I looked up what other people's interview experiences were like, and also what that specific company would be looking for through like their PM site or things like that, just more information about their PM role itself. So I did very specific interview prep for each company as well, and this one just kind of covers the general PM interview prep. So make sure when you actually go and look into interviewing for specific companies, I would highly recommend figuring out what specific rounds are like is it measuring product sense, is it interviewing for execution, things like that. So make sure that you are more prepared for the company specific type interviews, if that makes sense. Whereas this video is really more just general and doesn't cover specific interview rounds and things like that. So yeah, just wanted to point that out. And okay, yeah, thanks for watching.